We cannot skip this intro. Oh, yay. This was literally my first introduction to anime and anime OPs. It's kind of crazy, but everyone in the skating world is watching it. Even my favorite skater, Ashley Wagner, was literally talking about it. I was like, I think when she posted it is when I decided it was time for me to watch it. It's such a pretty OP too. The way like all of their moves are still like on the beat of the music. Okay. Sochi Grand Prix Final. 5th consecutive Grand Prix Final. Oh, he's very pretty. 27 is pretty old for figure skating. Oh yeah, don't look at the media. Also quite old for figure skating. He's been training in the US. That also doesn't happen super often. Japan is a very, very strong country in figure skating, so at least in solo skating, most of them are going to train in Japan. Usually ice dance in pairs. There's a lot more moving to other countries. It's not entirely abnormal, it just doesn't happen super often. Junior Grand Prix Final, yeah. So here's my first pause of this. So I want to kind of explain to you how the Grand Prix Final works without getting into huge detail because there are a lot of rules, but essentially the first half of the season for international skating is the Grand Prix. So there is both the Junior Grand Prix and the Senior Grand Prix. The Junior is going to be, I believe solo skating is under the age of 17, so they have to be 17 or younger, and then Senior is for 17 and older. And Junior actually happens from August until late September or early October, and then the Senior Grand Prix starts mid-October, almost always with Skate America here in the United States. In the Senior Grand Prix, there are 6 competitions, and skaters get a maximum of 2 events. The top 6 skaters from those 6 events get to compete at the Grand Prix Final. That means that from every Grand Prix where there's usually 12 skaters per solo event, you have to come in the top 3, so you have to podium at each of your Grand Prix, both of them, in order to qualify for the Grand Prix Final. The Grand Prix Final is a very special event that a lot of people never make because you have to show consistency early on in the season. And it's so difficult to make that sometimes 2 third place finishes is not enough. Even a second and a third sometimes is not enough. So you want to be winning things. So in order to make it to the Grand Prix Final, you've already proven yourself. The Grand Prix Final is kind of the icing on the cake. But the Junior Grand Prix from Yuri Plisetsky. I'm not good at Russian names, so I apologize in advance. It just means that he is quite a bit younger. He could be doing around the same elements just because at junior and the free skate, you're allowed to do quads and that sort of thing. He's not allowed to do quads in the short program, which is different, but the scores are going to automatically be lower just because it's junior. I think they have 1 less jumping pass altogether, but he took the gold in the junior event, and then there's a senior event. So all 4 disciplines at the Grand Prix Final have their junior events and their senior events, and all of them, it's only the top 6. So very, very big deal to just qualify. This has nothing to do with skating. I'm just giggling because they would not be speaking the same language to each other. That was very mean. Is he doing college and skating at the same time? That's not super common. Well, you did compete against him. 1 year later. That's some flexibility right there. Has he not? So he hasn't competed since the Grand Prix Final. Yep. Yep. Okay, so that's correct. So the Grand Prix final, getting there is a great success. You don't have to win there. Like, it's usually considered to be a success no matter what, even if you come in last place there. However, in the case of Yuri, I've said this before, figure skating is at least 50% mental, if not more. It's such a mental sport. That one loss can really affect you. And then if you go on to nationals, which Japan has very little time in between, the Grand Prix final is usually like the second weekend of December. And then their nationals is usually over Christmas week, so they get like 2 weeks in between, and then they're at nationals. So he couldn't shake how he felt, and then he didn't perform well there. Nationals, while it's not the trials, it's not like the Olympic trials where your entire season is completely based off of it, but if you do poorly enough there, you will not get named to the world team, to the four continents team, because Japan, being a very strong country, gets 3 in both women's and men's, and they usually are going to go with the top 3. However, if something crazy happens, you know, someone who, let's say the Grand Prix final champion went to nationals and came in 6th, they would probably still send them just because they've proven their worth for the season. You're going to want to go with the person that is, it's like choosing between the person that has been iffy all season but had a fluke good nationals, or the person that has been great all season and had a fluke bad nationals. The likelihood that the first person will do good at Worlds is much lower. So there's a lot to pick from, but if he did poorly enough, especially after coming in last place at the Grand Prix final, then his season would be done, which is correct. Sounds like that happens a lot. So it's been a whole year, though. She's ballet, so yeah, that makes sense. Uh-oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he has had a great season. That sounds so good. I'm hungry. Yummy. Aww. That looks really nice. Oh, absolutely not. Not when Worlds is happening. Speaking of Worlds is in like 3 weeks. It's kind of crazy, actually. I'd eat that too. I wish I could get some private ice somewhere. It's kind of mean. He looks great with a ponytail. It's very common for young figure skaters to find one skater that they just adore and latch onto everything about them. I even did that multiple times. So it's not quite the same as having a favorite actor or that sort of thing. When you are a figure skater and then you look up to a well-known figure skater, you feel like you're practically learning from them, right? And you want to be like them because they're doing the same thing that you are doing, but they're doing it at the most elite level that you can. So it's very common to take like hang on to every word they say and watch their skating over and over again and try and skate like them. It's a very relatable thing. I did that multiple times, and that like speaks to me a little bit because I'm like, oh, when I was a kid, I was the same way. It's crazy because these ice rinks that they've been competing in, like the one we saw in Sochi and the one that they're showing now, like is definitely modeled after the real rinks that these skaters skated in real life competitions, which is fun. Quadlets. Quad flip. It's interesting seeing the difference for this one compared to Medalist, because I think this is all hand-drawn. Medalist, I know that they're doing like CGI and using real-life skaters. So this one's a little bit harder to kind of break down and say, oh yeah, that was absolutely right, because it looks a little bit more just, I don't even know how to describe it, like almost herky-jerky. Like that quad Lutz, it looked like he just did a small loop and then went into it. He would need to gain speed around the entire rink, and no amount of like transitions you can add can change the fact that you have to kind of gain the speed around the rink in order to do something like a quad Lutz. You can't do that out of like a few small steps in the middle. So that might have just been because it's anime. Just calling it like I see it. Quad sound, yep. They are showing just enough at the very beginning of the jump for me to be like, okay, that's definitely correct. Triple axel. Has he done any combos yet? Okay. Triple axel, triple loop? It wasn't a toe loop. It's definitely a loop. You can tell the difference with a combo when they land the jump. When they land the jump, the way to be able to tell the difference between a toe loop combo and a loop combo is the toe loop combo. When they land it, you'll see their free leg, which is the leg in the air, pick in the ice and jump, like launch them back up in the air. If they do a loop jump after, it's considerably more difficult. They land on their landing leg. So if they're right-handed, they usually land on their right leg. I think for the sake of the animes, they always keep them spinning counterclockwise like right-handed people. So they land on their right foot and they don't swing their left leg around. They don't launch it into, like they don't pick into the ice. They just jump back up. Like that's the best way I can describe it. It's quite a bit harder to do. So you don't see a ton of loop combos. You usually see toe loop combos. It's worth less points, but the level of getting it done clean is important. You would rather do a less difficult jump well than a more difficult jump poorly. So it's give or take. He knows every step of this program. That's some next level love for a skater. When I was skating, probably go out and do one of Ashley Wagner's programs with easier jumps. I don't think I could do it step for step though. Triple Lutz. Did he only do one combo? There might be another jump here though. Triple flip. No combos? Only one combo? A quad at the end of the jump of the program? Okay. So he did 2 combos from what I can see. There should be 3 combos and one of them should be a 3 jump combo. Just throwing that out there. Very few skaters do a quad as the final jump too. That's incredibly difficult. Skating programs are very tiring. The more tired you are, the harder it is to jump. Their names are Axel, Loop, and Lutz. Those are 3 jumps, in case you didn't know. I'm assuming those are nicknames. Oh, it's that guy. Whoa, man. So you literally grew up and named your children after jumps? Kind of crazy. I think I know what's about to happen, if I'm remembering correctly. He's 15, so as a reminder, I know I mentioned that seniors are for 17 and above. That's a recent rule change. It used to be, I think you had to be 15 by July 1st of that year to compete in seniors. So in this world, because this is set almost 10 years ago, 15-year-olds are totally allowed to compete in senior. Why you have to be so mean? Oh, you're gonna do more than that. It's the last thing you like. I can't imagine if I went out there and did a carbon copy of Ashley's skates. I'd be so embarrassed. Snow in April. I thought the dog was dead. I'm confused. Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, I remember where this is going. I'm gonna have to censor some of this. Hello, Victor. Not the strategically placed fountain. Oh, Lord. All right. Okay, so that was Yuri on Ice, episode 1. Okay, it all is starting to come back to me. I do remember this first episode quite well. I just had to be kind of reminded of a couple things. So, for some reason, I was thinking from, like, my memory of the show, I was thinking that Yuri just, like, quit after the Grand Prix final, but it's not the case. If he had just quit after the Grand Prix final and, like, not gone to National just because he lost the Grand Prix final, I was ready to be like, that doesn't happen. Because, truly, and again, if there are any professional skaters that have competed at the Grand Prix final watching this video, feel free to correct me. But from a skater who watches skating perspective, skaters don't just give up after the Grand Prix final. Getting there is such an honor that even if you come in last place, you still can be proud of the fact that you got there. Everyone has a bad day, everyone has bad competitions, and every skater is different. So mentally, however you handle that is going to be different for every skater. So him just like not being able to shake that feeling when he has such a short turnaround in between the Grand Prix final and Nationals, that makes sense. That makes way more sense than what I was thinking it was in the past. So it really is that type of thing where if you ruin yourself at Nationals, like if you're just so deeply buried, let's say you come in 8th at Nationals, but you're coming off of winning the Grand Prix final, they still might send you, but they very well might not, because you're not able to put it all together in one of the most pressuring environments that you'll experience in the season. Because from what I've heard, every skater will say Nationals is a completely different pressure cooker than anywhere else, because at the end of the day, like Grand Prix, you want to win, you want to do your best, you want to go to the Grand Prix final, but if you don't go to the Grand Prix final, it's not the end of the world. Some skaters don't qualify to the Grand Prix final and still go on to medal at Worlds, because you're comparing the beginning of the season to the end of the season, and most skaters are going to be a little bit better by the end just because they're a little bit more confident and comfortable and not as just like, like I just had 4 months off and now I'm back to competing. So Nationals, you can't bomb Nationals if you don't want your season to end there. So that is very realistic that he just mentally couldn't shake it. I feel really bad for Japanese skaters. So in the US, we have the Grand Prix final, again, that's the second weekend of December. Nationals, unless it's an Olympic year, usually doesn't happen until the 3rd week of January. So they have over a month in between. The Grand Prix season is non-stop. It is literally back to back to back to back competitions. And that doesn't mean that you specifically are competing back to back. Usually you have at least a couple weekends in between, but it is 6 competitions that happen over 6 weeks, and then there's 1 week off, and then there's the Grand Prix final. So if you did your 2 Grand Prix events, you went to the Grand Prix final, not having that like month and a half off that US skaters have, I can only imagine how difficult it is for these skaters to have such a tiring first half of their season and then not get any time off and still compete in Japan, especially because there's also travel involved. The Grand Prix series, there's 2 events in North America, there's 2 events in Asia, and there's 2 events in Europe, and some of these skaters will compete in one in North America and then compete in one 3 weeks later in Japan, and I can only imagine how tiring just competing is, let alone all of that travel. So I feel like in Yuri's case, that's very realistic of him to not be able to shake how he felt at the Grand Prix final, simply because he doesn't get that break in between to like get himself together. And if you are a skater that's been struggling mentally for a while, it's gonna get you. So he needs to learn a little bit of mental fortitude in the sport, but everyone's different and some people just can never really get there. I never was really able to get there either. I was pretty terrified of competing for most of my career and also very scared of jumping. That was weird. I don't know why Siri was listening to me, which is something I'm gonna have to very much work for if I want to get back into competing.
それでは今日出てきた英単語を振り返ってみましょう。
Qualify。
この単語は特定の条件や基準を満たし、資格を得る、適任であることを意味します。 試験や大会の予選を通過する場合や、仕事や特定の役職に適していることを示す際に使われます。また、に限定されるという意味でも使われることがあります。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She qualified for the finals after winning her race.
彼女はレースで勝ち、決勝に進出する資格を得た。
You need a degree to qualify for this position.
この職に応募するには学位が必要です。グランプリファイナルに出場するには、6つの大会のうちの2つの大会に出場して、それぞれの大会で3位以上に入らないといけないらしいですね。なんというか、すごくギリギリの戦いになるんですね。
Fluke.
この単語は、成功や出来事がまぐれまたは偶然の幸運で起こったことを意味します。特に、努力ではなく、運によって成功した時に使われることが多いです。スポーツや試験、ギャンブルの場面などでよく使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
I got an A on the test, but it was just a fluke. I barely studied.
テストで A を取ったけど、ただのまぐれだよ。ほとんど勉強してなかった。
His hole-in-one was a total fluke.
彼のホールインワンは完全にまぐれだった。たまたま大会で優勝することもあるなんて言いますが、やっぱり実力がしっかりしてないと大会には優勝できませんよね。まあ、選手によって好調な時も不調な時もあるので、それが噛み合えばたまたま優勝できるのかも。
Latch onto.
この表現は、物理的に何かをしっかりつかむという意味のほか、比喩的にアイデアや考えに執着する、誰かにつきまとうことを意味します。特に、新しい情報を素早く理解したり、他人にしつこくついていく様子を表すことが多いです。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
The baby latched onto her mother and wouldn't let go.
赤ちゃんは母親にしがみついて離れようとしなかった。
He quickly latched onto the idea and started developing it further.
彼はそのアイデアをすぐに理解し、さらに発展させ始めた。若いフィギュアスケーターは憧れの有名な選手を一人見つけて、その選手の情報を集めたり演技を完コピしたりすることも珍しくないそうですね。私も憧れの人はたくさんいますが、そこまではなかったかもしれません。
Herky jerky.
この表現は、動きがぎこちない、急に止まったり動いたりすることを意味します。特に、機械の不安定な動きや、人が緊張して落ち着かない動作をする様子を表すのに使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
The car's herky jerky movements made me feel sick.
その車のぎこちない動きで気持ち悪くなった。
His dancing was kind of herky-jerky, but it was fun to watch.
彼のダンスはちょっとぎこちなかったけど、見ていて楽しかった。ユーリオンアイスはメダリストと違ってフィギュアスケートシーンの作画が手書きなので、見る人によってはちょっとぎこちなく見えてしまうようですね。ちなみに私は CG も手書きも、どっちも楽しめました。
Counterclockwise.
この単語は、反時計回りの、または左回りの動きを意味します。アメリカ英語ではカウンタークロックワイズ、イギリス英語ではランタイクロックワイズと言います。機械の操作や運動の指示を出す際に使われることが多いです。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
Turn the knob counterclockwise to loosen it.
ノブを反時計回りに回して緩めてください。
The runners had to move counterclockwise around the track.
ランナーたちはトラックを反時計回りに走らなければならなかった。このアニメではアニメ制作上の都合なのか、今のところすべての選手が反時計回りに回転していたみたいですね。こんなことも、有識ものじゃないと馬力に求めない部分なんでしょうね。
Pressure cooker.
この表現は文字通り圧力鍋という意味ですが、比喩的にプレッシャーのかかる環境や緊迫した状況を指すこともあります。 特に仕事や試験、スポーツの試合など、ストレスが大きい場面で使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
Working in a high-stakes law firm is like being in a pressure cooker.
ハイステークスな法律事務所で働くのは、まるで圧力鍋の中にいるようなものだ。
This exam feels like a pressure cooker. Everyone is so stressed.
この試験はまるで圧力鍋のようだ。みんなすごくストレスを感じている。グランプリファイナルはプレッシャーのかかる場面でしたが、残念ながら有利はプレッシャーに負けてしまったのか最下位に終わってしまいましたね。ただ、それでも出場するだけですごいらしいです。
Bomb.
この単語は、スラングで大失敗する、台無しにするという意味で使われます。特に試験やプレゼン、映画、舞台などの興行がうまくいかなかった時に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
I totally bombed my math test.
数学のテスト完全にやらかした。
The new movie bombed at the box office.
その新作映画は興行的に大失敗した。似たような単語としてはルーインというのがありますね。他にも色々と似たような表現はありますので、よかったら自分で調べてみてください。自分で調べるのが大事なのであって、決して私が面倒くさがってるわけじゃないですよ。